Hello and welcome to Sugar, Silk and Stretch, a unique boxing podcast brought to you exclusively by Ace Podcast Nation. My name is Ben Doughty.
Hey, I'm Gary Stretch.
And as you can plainly see, viewers, we don't have the dandy highwayman who we're too scared to mention tonight, do we? So it's just you and me, Gary.
Yes, Silk is somewhere missing tonight. Do you know where he is?
Well, I guess he's got something else to do. Whatever one-eyed, eye patch superheroes do around Manhattan, they're probably out there saving the streets, I imagine.
I suppose.
But Gotham City is a very dangerous place when all's said and done.
Yes. Well, he's not going to join. He's out for the night.
Yeah, possibly so. Let me see who we got there. There's Fishlip. I don't know who Fishlip is, by the way, but you tell you what's weird. Before there was a girl I used to train who, Kathy, my favourite client ever, who Michael actually put me onto and hooked us up. And she is the best. She's a golden client for any personal trainer if she likes you. There was a girl I used to train, and Kathy called her Fish Lips because she thought she looked somewhat, fish lipped. And now we have a fan who's quite a regular called Fish Lip. I don't think there's a connection. Fish Lip. That's the alias of the YouTube person that often watches us and gives support.
Fish Lip.
Fish Lip.
Fish Lip.
You know what you're doing? You're doing the Michael Olajide role. Now he's not here. You're being like...
No, I couldn't understand. Fish Lip, like she's got big lips or something, yeah?
Yeah, that was why Kathy called this particular girl Fish Lips. But we have a fan called Fish Lip, who I'm quite sure is a completely different person. Spartan935 says, whatever Silk is doing, he won't be doing road work anyway, because that was something that... do you know? No connection, says Fish Lip. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Listen, I'll be honest, Gary, I do love running. I've only been for a couple of runs in the last month or so, and every time I go, I feel so good and so much like I feel like I get so much benefit from it. I think it would have took me a lot of convincing not to run traditional 4 or 5 milers as a boxer. If I was boxing again, I think I would still want to do that. I think you said the same as well when we discussed that.
I would never box without road work, ever. No. Massive part of my training. Like Freddie Roach was big on, like, if you're going to start training, he would have you on the road for a couple of weeks before you even go in the gym. Yeah. He would get you wind, get you some lungs before you even go in, and it makes such a difference. Like if I was to start boxing, I would do at least a couple of weeks on the road before I even walk in the gym, and it massive amount of help.
It's a fitness platform, isn't it?
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah,
and when Michael says it doesn't correlate, it's not similar to boxing, I hear that, but here's what I would say, Gary. Does everything have to be highly specific, or can some things give you a certain cardio fitness aspect, and it doesn't have to be anything like boxing at all? It's just to fill the gas tank,
Yeah, it's the gas tank, and there's many aspects to boxing, and one of them is wind. And how do you get wind? Road work. I mean, there's many ways to get wind, but that's an essential. I don't mess with the. If it's not broken, don't fix it. I think since the beginning of time, running's been a part of boxing. So every fighter I've ever known has done road work.
Yeah, the Silk said just because
there's new methods now, Ben, sure, but doesn't mean to say the old methods don't work.
I think Silk's idea was just because people have done something for time in memoriam, it doesn't mean we should keep doing it that way, and it takes someone to think different. But he is a maverick. Dennis Rappaport calls him the contrarian. We know that. In his absence, you and I are just going to freeform this and see where the conversation takes us. There's not a lot going on this weekend, Gary. There is a matchroom promotion I think it's in California somewhere. Sky Nicholson is fighting. Galalia Fire is fighting. And I believe the headline is Richard Hitchens versus Gustavo Lemos. Hitchens is an undefeated New York kid, like welterweight, he beat Jose Zepeda last time out, who was also destroyed with a body shot by Dalton Smith, okay?
Right.
But Gustavo Lemos, he was the guy that ended Lee Selby's career up at lightweight back in 2022. So he's obviously a tough character. I'm not suggesting we find that particularly compelling to discuss. I'm just...
I honestly don't know the guys, Ben.
No, well, don't worry about that. You don't need to know about them. But as I say...
One second, Ben, I'm just looking for something.
Okay. We all are, deep down, I suspect, Gary. Aren't we all still, perhaps when we found everything, is that the moment to depart this mortal coil?
Yes, I don't want my phone to start going, and I've lost it. So
okay. I can call it if you want.
No, got it.
He's got it. What I was saying, guys, in Gary's absence, this kind of walk-off stage thing doesn't work quite as well. Now we've only got two of us, but
it's okay. Our supporters are very cool. You know that.
Yeah. Well, they don't follow us for slick, completely traditional production values. We know that much.
This is just a very at home with the boys podcast. You know, we don't
Indeed.
any pretentious. We don't have.
So I feel that there's a lot of stories around in boxing, even if there's not a lot of action this weekend. You know, for instance, talking of Dalton Smith, as we just were, it's official now that Adam Azim has dropped. He's dropping the European light welterweight belt because he doesn't want to fight Smith, who's been named as his mandatory challenger. And he's going to fight Harlem Eubank instead, which you remember, Gary, when we did the watch-along last Sunday, they announced that in the ring, even though we couldn't hear what was being said, but we got the gist of it. So, you know what? There's some people are saying, Eddie Hearn included, you know, because he's on a certain side of the fence. He says you can sugarcoat whatever you like, but Adam Azim has ducked Dalton Smith. Most people on social media are saying this is out of order. Why go for a European title if you won't even defend against a guy, you know, your domestic rival? You shouldn't be at that level if that's what you're going to do. Whereas,
you know, I think, Ben, it's, you know, and I know fighters are fighters. They'll fight generally, most of the time, they fight anyone. It's just, I guess, career moves. It's like everything, you know. It's like, is it a plus or a minus for your career? It's all about making money and get to a certain point. It's not about beating everybody who people think can beat you or not. That's ego. If they think his career will be better and more financially beneficial and safer, like, I don't really, even if it's a better route to the top with avoiding tough fight. I mean, if I just say to everybody, if it's your son and you're guiding him through his career, if there are better ways to get him from A to Z, you do it. And if
you do, but what about the thing of being a champion? Maneuvering your career when you don't have a title is one thing, but dumping these things like Pokemon stick tokens because it doesn't suit you. I'm not saying it makes a difference, but for me, it's a slightly different context. When you put this guy up as the European champion, you go for that title because it's available. Then the first sign of a tough challenge from your own country, you're like, oh, sorry, I don't want that anymore. Is that?
I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the fighter or his.
Well, it might not be. I mean,
so I think that everyone does what suits them best until they have to do whatever. And I think that's, it is what it is. I don't think it's the fighter. I think Azim will fight whoever you put in front of him. But if they have different plans, sure. I mean, if I was managed by you and you said, Gary, this is more money doing it this way or a better way to do it, or I think the fighters they just say, a lot of them just let the managers or the promoters handle what they do. I'm sure they're involved. I'm sure it's just he doesn't really care, but or he doesn't fancy it. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It is what it is. I think you just, everybody wants someone to fight somebody, but it doesn't always happen. I'm sure
it doesn't. But there's a difference in we want this fight, and they say we don't want it. And you're the European champion. This is your mandatory challenger, and the Border Control and the EBU both say you've got to fight this guy, or else get off the pot. I'm not saying it changes your argument or anybody else's argument.
That's just like Canelo and Benavidez. Canelo's going to say, okay, you want me to defend against number one, but I have a bigger fight fighting whoever. Such a body, more money, more face, bigger draw. It just chooses it. It's all financial at the end of the day. I think if the money was there, that it was such a big fight, the fight would be on. Or you plan it down the line. If it's risky, you try and make a bit more money, and you just manage the guy the best way you can. It's
well, this is what Ben Shalom said. I mean, Eddie's saying that, that he's ducking him because he's got Dalton Smith and he fancies Dalton Smith to win the fight. But Ben Shalom said, listen, look at Fraser Clark and Fabio Wardley. We pulled out of those purse bids and didn't want that a year ago either. But look at the fight they produced and the money they got when they boxed last Sunday, and most people allowed in that one as a domestic classic. So Ben Shalom said, pretty much like you're saying, it's a question of marinating and timing and all the rest of it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't look into it so deep. To be honest, if as a fighter, your job is to get ready and be prepared to fight anybody, and as a promoter, you're supposed to guide your fighter in the easiest, most direct route to making money, keeping him safe, and keeping some longevity in his career. So,
yeah,
again, everyone makes such a big deal. It is what it is. It'll happen if it's going to happen. If it's not, it's not. I don't think it's a massive duck. They just have other plans.
I'm inclined to go along with you.
The Eubank fight is probably a bigger money fight for him, for sure. Maybe an easier fight. So
who the hell is Harlem Eubank, though, Gary? Who the hell is Harlem Eubank? Yeah.
Well, it's Eubank, and that name brings, that name has a certain amount of money attached to it. And so if it's an easier route for a lot of money, then he would be mismanaged if he didn't take
it. Gary, you of all people should know, just because you fight a Eubank, it doesn't mean you're going to end up quids in. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know we don't want to go on it forever, but we'll keep talking about certain things that are going on right now. But Jonathan O'Halloran has a question. He says a question for both of us, one that he never gets bored of hearing the answers to. How did you learn to cope with the fear in the dressing room before you went out to fight, amateur or pro? Well, obviously I've got the amateur experience.
You want to go first, Ben?
Okay. You know what? I don't think I ever learned any strategies to cope with it whatsoever at all. I just think it got a bit easier as I got a bit older. You're still nervous. But I remember being 16 and being a bit more kind of one of the boys and a bit of gallows humor, and I could handle it. And I wasn't too bad. You think, okay, you've done this however many times you've done it before, 20 or whatever, and it's gonna be okay. You go out and do your thing. Whereas I remember the fear. Some of them dinner shows as a kid. You ever box on some really leery dinner shows as a kid? It's full of smoke. There's coarse language. There's drunken men there in tuxedos betting, and you actually felt an atmosphere that really was a little bit ugly sometimes. Even racism was present. Not that I'm complaining that it was directed at me, but you know what I mean, Gary? That 1980s working man's club, Gary. Sometimes I thought I'm never doing this again once I get this fight over with, because you felt so kind of, I say fearful, frozen with apprehension. But then you fight, and whether you win or lose, you come out the ring feeling okay, and you think, well, I was overreacting there. Of course, I'm going to box again. You know what I mean? But for me, it just got easier, Jonathan, as I got a bit older. Honestly, that was it.
I fought a few of them shows, Ben. The fight before George Collins, the semi-final, it was in Coventry, I think, and all my fans went down, coach loads, and it was so hostile, the fight before Collins. It was such a grudge match, and I beat the guy, and then we had to literally get escorted out the ring. They were going to kill us, the fans. It was like a Coventry fight. My brother, me, like there was it went on because they got us out the event, and then we went out that night, and we come out of a club, and in Coventry, and they were all there. They say like 50 guys, and it just kicked off. And one of my friends ended up in intensive care with like serious damage. He got hit in the mouth with an iron bar, and his teeth were down here, Ben, and the nerves were, and he had a clot in his brain, almost died. It was like 5 surgeries and 6 months in, like horrific. And we all ended up in the back of a police van. It was complete mayhem. It was like scary. And my father was with us, but he went home and we all went out. And that was, thank God he wasn't with us. But and it kicked off. It was such a massive fight, and I'm knocking bodies out everywhere, and it was crazy. And we all ended up in the back of a van, and my brother was left out of the van, and they're about to close the van and drive off the police, and he would have got killed. So he just cracked a guy right in front of the policeman and grabbed him and threw him in the back of the van, so he was safer in the police van. But we all got arrested and then got let out, and they found out what was going on, and it was cool, but scary. But in regard to the question, Ben, the nerves and the fear, it's funny when you sign up on a fight. you get the initial kind of little bit of, butterflies or whatever, but the preparation kind of prepares you for your mind gets set to do it. And I think by the time you get there, you just want to get it over with because you've been doing it, preparing so long, you've been through so much. You just want to get in and get it done and get out. So it's like the preparation really takes the nerves away. And I think the more you prep and the harder you train, the less the nerves, as you know, Ben. When you feel like you're ready, you feel a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
If you skip out or don't do the right prep, then of course you're going to be nervous because you're not ready. But the more ready you get, the less nerves. And
these days, some of them
I always got nervous, and I use the nerves, Ben. I never denied the nerves. I always used the adrenaline to help me.
I know some of them do psychological training these days, and some of them have mind coaches. That seemed to be hip a few years ago with professional boxers. I know that Jim McDonnell used to do psychological mental training with James DeGale, and they would simulate walking into the arena, especially at perhaps a hostile arena, like when he fought Groves. He said there's going to be a lot of Groves fans in there, things like that. And Jimmy Mack would try to recreate these scenarios with his boxers like James DeGale and others. Because he said Danny Williams, incidentally, and other people have said this too, was the most fearful fighter ever. Danny's nerves absolutely crucified him. He said he'd never seen a fighter. A few people told me this. They'd never seen a fighter who seemed to dread the actual occasion as much as Danny Williams. So sometimes
it's a massive part of the game is the handling it, and you just got to, like, I never denied it. I think the worst thing you can do is fight it. You've just got to say, yeah, I'm nervous, I'm afraid. But you got to ask yourself, what are you afraid of? It took me many years to work it out because no matter how many victories I had, I was always afraid. So, I never got confident. And it took me years to work it out. You're afraid of the unknown. You just don't know what's going to happen. So there's always some kind of nervous fear factor.
And also, Raymond Hales has asked you, did you do anything different for the Eubank fight? And how did you feel?
No, the only difference was there was a bit of insecurity in my heart because I was a last minute replacement. Not last minute, but they didn't give me a lot of time, so there was a level of apprehension because I had the biggest fight in my life with the least amount of prep, so against the bigger guy. So I was I was more saddened that I couldn't get ready for it, but they wouldn't allow. I asked them, could we push it and fight on such a date? But it was like, this is the date, take it or leave it, and I just took it. But and not to say that if I'd have trained longer, the result would have been different, but I would have probably felt a lot better, and I'm sure that it would have been a different result. Whether a victory would have been there or not, who knows? But I didn't have ideal preparation, and that was not ideal for me. It was, it was that, I wasn't happy about it, to be honest. I knew I could be better, but I give it all I had on the night, and I walk away from it. It is what it is. Maybe it's a saving grace. Eubank's won a lot of fights late. I could have been beating him in 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round, exhausted, got hit. I could have been another Michael Watson. So you got to take what it is, and I'm blessed. No one got hurt, and it was not my night, but that's okay. I had a lot of good nights and a couple of bad nights. So
it's funny.
You got to take it with the wins with the losses,
It's funny, Joe mentioned that Razor Ruddock often looked on the verge of a panic attack. There was a funny interview, with Razor Ruddock in KO magazine in the 80s. It could have been even, it was the late 80s, I believe. And the writer, Jeff Ryan, is asking him questions, right? He's doing the interview for the KO magazine with Razor Ruddock. And at some point, they're talking normal stuff, how did it all start and this and that, and what's been your toughest fight so far, whatever. Then he said, I believe at one point there's a story that you ran away from home when you were 8. You went into your mother's bedroom, put on one of her dresses, then ran away. And Razor Ruddock went, who told you that? What the fuck? And he's like, seriously, who told you that? And he said, He said, it's on your press release. He said, you're fucking kidding me. Yeah, like, Rasklar, nah. And he said, it's on your He said, Jeff, I'll call you back. And he puts the phone down and gets onto his management or his promoter. I think it was Morad Mohammed. But it was hilarious.
He said, it wasn't my mum's dress, it was my sister's.
Yeah, this has been grossly misrepresented, this story, and I wish to, stop any smears right now. But it was funny, Gary. Like I say, I'd like to find that issue again, because he's like, Jeff, I'll call you back. I need to get this sorted. You can't believe that was written on his press release. But getting back to
the other side of the coin, Ben. There's a lot of great gym fighters, and they don't cross over to when they actually fight. They're not the same.
Gym champs, we call them.
Yeah, so I used to generally rise to the occasion. I don't know why. I was always scared. I was always nervous, but I always used to feel like I would get it. I would be fine on the night. And you have bad days in the gym, but again, it's not about the gym. It's about, you got to be ready for 1 hour of one night. And so I used to, always feel like I would be better on the night. But some guys, they kick your ass in the gym week in, week out. And then I had a sparring partner who used to give me all kinds of problems, and I ended up boxing him. Can't remember the name of the guy now. I will tell you in a second. You all know him. I wasn't a sparring partner, but we worked together quite a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was very, very good in the gym. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a tough fight. And I took him out and around until he just...
Was it in the London gyms?
Yeah. I will come back to you. But anyway, the fight was easy. But I could tell he kind of froze on the night.
Let me think who that could have been. Not Derek Wormold.
No.
Tommy McCallum. I'm looking at your one round wins. Ian Martin, 1 round win.
Ian Martin.
Yeah, was that him? That was a 1 round win for you.
I think 1 round win. I think we worked once in a gym. If I remember, I think it was Ian
Wembley
Martin.
Arena, and it was on the same bill.
Very, very.
Bruno Coetzee, Gary. It was on the Bruno Coetzee bill.
Yeah, one of them fights. It was I remember that we'd worked once in the gym, and I remember I think it was Ian, and he was impressive. And then we fought, and it was pretty not easy. They're never easy. Just caught him like you do. But a lot of fighters change when they get big gloves come off, small gloves, no headgear, big lights. It does affect people. The mental side of the game is massive, Ben. It can nerves. They can make you better, or they can cripple you. You've just got to handle them well and use the adrenaline, because it helps. I've said this before. I don't know, sound like a record play, but if a deer can jump 20 feet normally, with a lion behind it can jump 30 feet. So that 10 feet is adrenaline. So if you can use that, you perform at a higher level. If you can use the adrenaline to give you better performance and not freeze, then it's something that you want to have that fear. Tyson talks about it all the time.
Yeah, because Costamato always spoke about it. Yeah. Yeah,
it's not about I mean, people who deny it, just they're the crazy people or the liars. It's like, it is a nerve-wracking. It's not. It's you're getting into a fight. You don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of people there. There's nothing more embarrassing than two men fighting and one beating the other. It's even to the degree that your mum's there or your girlfriend, and if you get beat by another man in front of your girlfriend, it's embarrassing, right? I mean, you're men. Yeah. There's a fear factor. My biggest fear was not so much getting hurt, Ben, was getting beat. You know what I mean? I was embarrassed to get beat, and then you have all the weight of your trainers, and you're letting everybody down, and all this stuff comes into mind. The embarrassment of it, and people are backing on you, and people talk about you, and there's a whole environment around you. People are building you up, and you go in and get beat. It's like there's a lot of people get affected, so you carry the pressure with you. And now as an older man looking back, I would be much more carefree. I don't care what people think anymore, but back then I did. But you can't, your age and wisdom, it comes as you get older. So
3 questions for you here that we better get to them before they build up to the point where we can't address them because we've just moved on too far. I'll give them in order they were asked. There's one from Raymond Hales. How good was Eubank? Ultimately,
Eubank is very good. There's no denying. But for me, I didn't find him difficult at all, to be honest. Other than when I got caught with a really good shot. If you watch it, he punches right through me. That kind of shot hitting anyone, yeah, you're in trouble. But before that, like if you watch Eubank Ben, Eubank Watson, they were having wars first 4, 5, 6 rounds. I never got, I don't think he really caught me at all for 5 rounds. So I didn't find him. I felt I had a handle of him to a degree. I was able to shut him down. But again, it's a matter of time. He caught me, and he could have, had he not, who knows what would have happened. But we'll never know. It is what it is. But no, he was not difficult for me. I managed him quite well.
From Jonathan O'Halloran, did you ever spar with Nigel Benn?
No, I think Ben is very different fight to Eubanks. Eubanks, to be honest, is the worst kind of fighter in the world. He's tough, unbelievably strong, got an amazing chin. So whoever fights Eubanks, I'm talking Eubanks in his prime, is in for a rough, long night. You're not getting him out. Very unlikely to get him out anytime early. Ben, a lot easier, not a lot easier, but Ben, you could probably, if you caught him, get him out, but he's also much more dangerous than Eubanks. So,
I think he might have the better resume as well, even though I think if you want to talk head-to-head, I think Eubank was the better fighter of the two. And I think he proved it certainly in the first fight, which I regard as more definitive. I know there was a controversy in the rematch a couple of years later. But, and also, incidentally, you're the only person I don't give a hard time for calling him Eubanks when it's Eubank singular. There's no S.
Yeah. Ben was funny, the funny thing about Nigel Benn was that Ben, you could hurt Ben a lot easier, but Ben was really dangerous when he got hurt. So it was
the Tiger syndrome.
False sense of security. You could catch Ben and then go and try and finish him and get knocked out because he was extremely dangerous. You saw the Gerald McLaren fight, but so very, very different approach to both fights I would have had if I'd have fought Nigel.
Gary Rickards is asking, are you glad you got out when you did, or do you think you could have done more? Because sometimes a fighter is a lesson know when to turn it in.
I regret very much getting out when I did, because I think I was not even at my prime. I was young and I was still climbing the ladder. So looking back, I should have gone back to my weight, which I never really lost at my weight for many, many years. And I would have liked to have seen what I could have done at that weight. It was a weight that I was bigger, I was stronger, I was effective at. And actually at the time, if you look at the people who were around, there was no one in any way, shape or form nearly as close to the danger of a Eubanks, who I handled pretty well while it lasted. So I would have loved to have tested, my abilities at my weight, but politics got me out of boxing, and I should not have. I was a very emotional person, headstrong, and I felt I was getting ripped off by promoters, and I cut my nose off to spite my face. I said, rather than you earn another dollar from me, ain't happening. And I just walked away.
But you had the other thing going on. You had the other career.
Yeah, but it wasn't that, Ben. It was I wanted to fight when I quit. I was stubborn, and I was so down on the fight game, kept getting offered this and promised that. I didn't want to give up my British title. I wanted to get my Lonsdale belt. I got persuaded to give it up rather than defend it. And we needed one more defense. My first defense wormholed 1 round. I could have gone and done it again. Just give it up. And I didn't realize they were just getting the younger fighters opportunities at my expense. And so, you don't listen. And then I was young, ambitious, thinking world title. They get promised things, then it never happened. And then all of a sudden that doesn't happen. And now I've lost my Lonsdale belt. It was like stupidity. I was young, inexperienced, and I trusted everybody. So I got out of the game because of the disappointments, and I should have not allowed anyone to have that kind of power. I should have stopped, get a good team around me, like what Mayweather did. I could have filled any venue after Eubanks. I could have gone up north, Liverpool, Manchester. Every fight I ever had was a packed venue. And if you look at the Eubanks fight and listen to the crowd, they're not there for him. Sellout crowd. I certainly had the majority there for me. But I could have been a lot smarter and got good people around me and promoted myself. I should have done the Floyd Mayweather. I had the ability to sell tickets and sell fights, but I just got out disheartened with the game. In regard to the question, I'm also happy I got out, because who knows what could have happened. Every fight, Ben, the fight game, anything can happen. And the longer you're in it, the more chance you have of getting hurt. And so we'll never know. I would have liked to have done more, but I didn't. But life goes on.
This one constantly comes up ever since we've been doing this podcast. How would Gary fight Silk? Do we get these matchmakers trying to put you two together in a fantasy fight?
I would love to have fought Silk. I mean, not now, because I know him. I love him, but I'd have fought anyone. Honestly, you can see, like, jumping up to fight Eubanks at short notice. I don't think there's many more difficult fight. I think Eubanks probably is one of the most difficult fights out there. Like I say, he's a tough, strong, hard puncher, durable, awkward. He was everything that people wouldn't want to fight. So to fight Eubanks, obviously I would have fought anybody. I never worried about the people. I used to, and that was to my detriment. I'd just say, put him in front of me, I'll fight him. But then on the fights that I really wanted, I couldn't get them. And most of my fights, there were certain fights I wanted. I wanted to fight Chris Pyatt. I wanted to fight Lloyd Hunnigan. I had me and Hunnigan had a tear up in the gym. I was extremely comfortable when I worked with Hunnigan. I was bigger, I was longer, I was a little bit faster, I felt. We had a spar which out of control. The spar, we had to get broke up. But why it happened, I felt extremely comfortable. So there was, and he was tiny compared with Eubank. He was like a little guy, not particularly, little guy. And there was so many fights I wanted and never got them. Yeah, but Silk was a beautiful type of fighter to fight. He would have given me range. He would have tried and outsmart me, outbox me. It would have been more of a chess game. Would have been a great fun fight. Yeah.
Raymond Hales has said this. This gets said a lot, but I don't agree with it. I think it's a bit of
I sparred with Watson, and we were friends, and he trained in Vegas with me, and I used to spar with Michael and Mike McCallum. I worked with. There was a bunch, and I think James Kitchen was over. There was a lot of great fighters in the top-ranked gym, and so Watson was probably the best all-rounder, I think, of all of them.
I don't think he was a better fighter, though. When people say that, I think Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank were better fighters than Michael Watson. I think he matched up well style-wise at both of them. Obviously, he beat Nigel. He beat a greener version of Nigel, who had still had a few things to learn. And fair play to him. It was an epic fight, epic moment. And but I don't think See, he was dominating Eubank in a rematch. You got to admit that. But
I mean, he was a different kind of fighter. He had qualities that they didn't have, and they had qualities he didn't have. But
exactly, and I don't think he'd have done what they did, Gary. That's the thing. Regardless of how much trouble he gave them both, I don't think he would have achieved what they did at any point.
We'll never know. But he was a really good all-rounder, Michael. Like you say, they may have had better attributes, but he was always going to give them problems, and like you say, Ben, I think stars make fight. He was the Achilles heel to both of them, and I think he always would have been. He just had he had the style that they found trouble with. It's a little bit like Holyfield Tyson. I honestly think if Tyson would have fought Holyfield 4 or 5 times, it would have been the same result. He would not have got Holyfield out that quick because Holyfield was smart. Holyfield would have took him into deep water every time. And Holyfield's style and the kind of fighter he was always going to take Tyson into uncomfortable places that he was just he had the style to beat Mike, and he could have never beat some of the fighters that Mike beat, I don't think. Or would have had a lot of difficulty.
Who did Tyson beat?
Well, I'm just saying there were some big heavyweights and that maybe Holyfield would have had more trouble with, but he was just the perfect style for Mike. Again, I'm not going to get into.
If they'd have fought in 1980, say 1990, when they were supposed to fight, because if he'd have beaten Buster Douglas, his next fight would have been Holyfield. If they'd have fought then, you think Holyfield would have still won in 1990?
If what, Ben?
If Tyson had beaten Buster Douglas, his next fight would have been Evander Holyfield. You think Holyfield would have won then as well in 1990?
Probably, yeah. I mean, look, Buster Douglas was a perfect example. He weathered the storm and took Mike into deep water. And it's a funny thing because, you know, Mike is an amazing fighter, amazing heavyweight. But every time he got put into certain uncomfortable positions, he had problems. And if you could weather the storm, I think a lot of people froze with Mike. A lot of people were intimidated by Mike. And that one night that Buster Douglas, his mum had died, I think he was on a spiritual... He dug so deep. It was not about him. It was about his mother. He gave everything, and he weathered the storm. You know, I think maybe the story with the mother, maybe there was parts of that which kept him in the fight where he could have just, you know, on a normal situation, he may have quit, but she give him an...
Well, you say that, Gary. He only had one moment. He was beating fuck out of Tyson from the start. He only had that one moment when he got decked in the 8th.
Yeah, but I mean, but whatever the moment was, he got through it because of the mental strength, probably due to his mother, and then he gets into that deep water again, and it's an issue. And I think Holyfield, if he'd have fought Holyfield, if he'd have beat Douglas and then fought Holyfield, I think Holyfield would have done the same. I think Holyfield is much mentally stronger than Douglas, and I think he would always have a problem with Holyfield.
Well, yeah, well, obviously, I think Douglas was a huge disappointment when he did beat Iron Mike, and then he defended against Holyfield first time out, and he came in heavy, like he just spent the time on the couch eating donuts, you know, and basically he folded pretty easy, didn't he? He threw this silly right uppercut lead, you might remember, and Holyfield took a step back and hit him with a right hand counter, and that was that. So
I think if you look at, let's look at the reality. So this complete underdog beats Mike Tyson in his prime, the shock of the world, right? Can you imagine overnight, of all the people to beat in his prime, Mike Tyson, this kid does a number? None. It's not a lucky victory, like you say, Ben. He was beating him. He had he had a lot of success throughout the fight. And so, can you imagine the amount of attention? Everyone in the world would have wanted a piece of this kid. Every party, every event, every spot.
You say that. I know I'm very argumentative. I know I'm a nightmare, but you say that. But I remember after the fight,
Ben, to reality.
Listen. I remember. I'm exhaustively geekily well read, as you know. After the fight, Douglas was looking. He was offered a sponsorship deal from an Ohio burger chain, and he refused it because he was waiting for a better offer. And as they said in KO magazine or Ring magazine, unfortunately, Burger King or Mickey D's never called. And they were saying he wasn't certainly not getting the commercial opportunities he expected.
I understand that on big brands.
You didn't become Mike Tyson.
I'm not talking about big brands and corporate world. I'm talking about in his life, the amount of people who would have come out the woodwork, from women to friends, to every party, and you're gonna ride the wave, and he just kept riding the wave, and for sure, it's like exactly what happened to Andy Ruiz, exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's the biggest win of his career. Invited, complete life changer.
Didn't happen to Cassius Clay though, did it? When it struck Muhammad Ali when he beat Sonny Liston, which must have similar.
No, but Ali's a different breed, isn't he? Come on, yeah. He got the same attention when he wasn't champion. He was insane, you know. He had this charisma. He walked in a room. He demanded the attention. Period, Ali. And so no, but these are, you know, this is a you know, little fat Mexican kid. I actually believe Andy Ruiz is a much better fighter than people give him credit for. But you just can imagine this little kid who had a rough ride. He changed a few trainers, promoters. He was not. He had I think, I don't know if it was Lou Do. Someone he was around. He was moving around. He signed with someone. They lost interest kind of in him, and he moved to someone else. And he was one of these guys who he had potential, but I think a lot of people thought he didn't fulfill it. And all of a sudden, he beat Joshua. Life changed overnight, invited to every fucking party in the world, every event, and lost control of it. He wasn't disciplined, may have not had the best people around him, got caught up with the wrong people, didn't listen to the best people around him. It happens. And
absolutely.
And yeah, and I think exactly what happened to Andy Ruiz probably happened to Buster Douglas, and it's happened to a lot over the years.
Well, it was happening in a different way. It was happening to Mike Tyson going into the fight, wasn't it? Because his focus was not the same as it had been back in 1988, for instance. You know.
And again, like back to the questions from the boys who were phoning in, you need that fear factor to be on your toes. You know what I mean? And I think when Mike wasn't on it, think it's an easy fight. It can bring you down if you're not scared. So you need to be cautious, and that cautiousness and fear keeps you keeps you sharp and keeps you safe.
Talking of heavyweights, as we edge closer to the big one on May the 18th with Fury and Usyk, the word on the street, as it were, is that Daniel Dubois may end up fighting Filip Hrgović for what they expect to be the vacant IBF title, and Anthony Joshua may face the winner around September or something like that. You know, so Fury and Usyk, presuming everything goes ahead as it should do on May the 18th, they're tied into a rematch, which means that I don't think that's a fair fight. Meaning, I think Parker deserves the shot before Dubois, right? Maybe so, but since when has that ever, with all due respect, Gary, since when has that ever anything to do with it? And to be honest, that's going against your very sensible argument earlier that it is what it is.
No, it's not, because this is not. I mean, this is literally someone is in line.
Well, so is Dalton Smith, but yeah, no, right.
Yeah, but I'm not talking that. That's Donald Smith, but if he wants that fight, but if Parker wants that fight, then he is first in line. If
is he though?
What I'm saying is, if the guy's giving up the title, right?
That what they're saying is that because Fury and Usyk are tied into a rematch clause, the IBF are not going to have their mandatory circumvented, and they're not going to wait for a rematch. So they will strip whoever wins that fight of the IBF belt unless they fight Filip Hrgović, right? That is the thing. He is the mandatory, regardless of anything else.
But what I'm saying is the champion is not giving up the title. He wants to defend his title. So
who does? Who does?
Well, the mandatory, it's a vacant belt, right?
No. So who's the one who wants to defend the title? Explain that to me.
No, Adam Azim, right? Is giving up a title rather than fight someone, right?
Yeah.
Right. But if he wasn't to give it up, he would have to fight that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So doesn't care about the title, right? He's looking at a payday maybe with Eubanks, if that's the case. I don't know. But
he'd get the same money for Smith, I'm sure. But
if like this, the Hrgović fight is for a title, so the one fights two, not the best. This is what I'm saying. It's not about the numbers. It's about like one should fight two. If he doesn't want to fight Smith, he has to give it up, and Smith will fight someone else. So Smith will still get his due. He'll get his title fight. Whereas what I'm saying is, if Hrgović is fighting for a vacant title, then I think that who's the fighter I mentioned? I'm going mad.
Well, I say Filip Hrgović is the mandatory. If the winner of Fury Usyk won't face him,
And then let's go down the ladder. Who's above Dubois? That's what I'm saying. That's my argument. Whoever's above Dubois should get the opportunity. Andy,
well, let's have a look. I'm trying. So
why Dubois? That's what I'm saying. Why not? This is what I'm saying. Why not the guys who are above him? I bet there's 3 or 4 above him, right?
I'm trying to look at the ratings here now. Okay, so let me get it. I've got the IBF heavyweight rankings. Yeah. Okay, you ready for this?
Go on.
So here's the thing. This is why it's not. You cannot apply sporting logic because that's the same as it's the same as Dalton Smith and Adam Azim. Sporting logic says fight him, you bloody lily-livered coward, or don't be a fighter, which we say is nonsense, and that's Boy Scout stuff, right, Gary? But right. You can't apply it to this situation either because the ratings are as follows: Filip Hrgović is the #1 contender with the IBF right now. Yeah. Number 2 is not rated. Don't ask me why that happens, but it happens a lot. Number 3 is Anthony Joshua, and number 4 is Daniel Dubois. Now does it make sense? Parker's not in line. You might think he should be, but he's not. Yeah,
amazing. How Dubois is above Parker?
But it's got nothing to do with anything, Gary. It's nothing to do with ability and sport. It's literally got nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Well,
Parker is a WBO interim champ. Is a bit more. Parker is a WBO interim champ, so he's not in with the IBF because they don't. You know how it is, politics and sanctioning body rivalry.
How do they justify, Ben, that all the different bodies have different opinions of who's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right?
Well, that's why when people start talking about the top 10, and Michael does this a lot, I just say who's top 10. I'm not being difficult.
No, it's correct. Who's top 10 is correct, Ben.
Who's top 10 are you talking about? So this is why I don't really. I cover boxing in my little way, right? I talk about it with you and Michael. I go out and get content, interviews and stuff. I've done over the years. And I've got this popular kind of Facebook page, which some people see as the cutting edge place to talk boxing online. And all I've got is my little bit of leverage of that. And I try to ignore as much of this nonsense as I can because I think to propagate it, I like to mention the fights and the fighters. I will mention the titles and some of the politics to a degree, but I think sometimes we can buy into that too much. Like Boxing News stopped mentioning certain belts, stopped giving them that kind of kudos. So when Ring Magazine, even in the 80s, they tried to go back to 8 weight divisions at one point, which I didn't necessarily agree with. But you see what I mean? The Ring Magazine said we're not going to mention these alphabet boys anymore because we don't want to give them the esteem and the energy. And this is the problem, But
yeah, like I say, it's all business. That's the back to that. We will never get away from it.
It's become too anarchic, hasn't it? It's become too much of a Wild West. We need more.
But at least Ben, people like you and me, and even the people who tune in, people know at least. Whereas before it was much more undercover. Now with the social media and people have conversations and people can be heard. Everybody knows what's going on. So at least there's light on the issue. It's still happening, but we know about it. So at least we have somewhat not satisfaction, but at least we all know what's going on, and they can't hide it anymore. It is what it is, and they have to. It doesn't rub well, like when Eddie Hearn or whoever comes out with this stuff, he doesn't get away with it anymore because they can't say, okay, Eddie, you can say what you want, but we know, at least that we know. He gets away with it, but people know. Whereas before, it was a lot more under the carpet. People, didn't know, but we know now.
So that situation would seem to be as follows: Fury Usyk fight on May the 18th. Somebody wins, assuming that unless there's a reason why you might not think there's any grounds for a rematch, there's likely to be a rematch, which will probably free up the IBF belt, which means Hrgović will contest it. People are saying Dubois. I called Don Charles today to ask him about that, but he hasn't come back to me as yet. But the idea is that Anthony Joshua may fight the winner of that. And obviously, by that time, Fury Usyk 2 could play out. Let's suppose Tyson Fury emerges victorious, let's say twice.
It all depends on how the fight goes, Ben. If Fury knocks him out and destroys him in 5 rounds, who wants to see a rematch? But
we get
vice versa.
Callum Smith, Eubank. We got that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess. I wonder if whoever wins even allows the other a rematch. you know, they could just say and retire. You know what I mean? Or
Can't stop man retiring, but there is a rematch clause. So if they're not
yeah,
retiring, they have to do it. You know.
not if they want to retire.
No, I'm saying obviously if they don't retire, they have to. They're tied into a rematch. But
Who'd you fancy, Ben?
well,
Fury?
you
Who's
said it before. Well, I
you're
fancy
both on Fury, right?
Yeah, I still think I've always thought he would beat Usyk, and I'm not changing my mind now just because he looked like 17 shades of shit against Ngannou. I'm still not allowing that to change my whole
I
opinion.
think it's a plus. I think it's a mental plus for Fury that he's now got to prove, you know. So I think it'll serve him well, that bad, you know, the bad performance. I think as long as he isn't on the slide, which we'll only know after Usyk. But if he just had a terrible, stupid night, then this will serve to get him. He'll get ready for this one. So it may be a blessing what happened, as long as he didn't, you know, he isn't on the slide overnight. He turned from one fighter to another, which it happens, but hopefully it's not the case with Fury. He does look suspect though, Ben, a little bit when he gets hit now, doesn't he?
Who?
Fury.
Yeah.
The shot that he got knocked down with Ngannou was a glancing blow. Given it was on the back of his head, maybe a funny spot, but it wasn't a big shot. And you know, he got hurt. He even said he got really hurt. And if you look at the shot, it was a glancing shot. I even think that that he said it wasn't even a clean. I think it hit his arm first, then his head. So it was like, you know, it was Ngannou said it wasn't a clean shot. He said it glanced, kind of glanced his shoulder, then his head. So it was, but maybe it was just at a really weird place at the back of the head. But he does look a little bit. He's looked more and more vulnerable than he's been.
When you're getting older and you live the way Fury does, you know, because he doesn't live a perfect life when he's not in training. Well, you know what? He says he's always in training. He said he's always doing gym stuff, and he needs to for his mental health. But we know that he drinks or has drank in the past, and we know that you know that his diet isn't always clean. You know that for a fact.
Yeah, it does catch up with you eventually.
And he's a little bit erratic generally, isn't he, with his whole mentality. And personally, I think Fury has gone, says Raymond Hales. You know what? He could be finished, and maybe it will all come.
You never know. We'll know. Usyk will certainly answer that question. If he is, he'll get it. He'll have a hard night. If he isn't, I don't think so. I think he'll get up for this. But and thank God Usyk's not the biggest punch in the world. He's a hurtful puncher. He's a collective puncher, whereas many shots. If he's going to get Fury out of it, it'll be probably a constant bombardment of busy shots that will, not particularly one shot in particular, although he has the power as he showed as a light heavyweight when he almost killed who's a Liverpool fighter.
Tony Bellew, that was a cruiserweight, but yeah,
that was what a beautiful shot that was. I mean, if he catches anyone with that shot, that was like, textbook knockout. But I mean, that's like everyone catches people with them kind of shots once in a while. It's a perfect shot landed at the perfect time. That would have took out most people, most heavyweights, I'm sure. But he's certainly got some power, Usyk. Not devastating power, but collective power. So, but I think again, stars make fights. I think Fury's the wrong style for him.
Well, Raymond Hales has asked who's training Fury now. To the best of my knowledge, he's still training with Sugar Hill Stewart, I believe.
I believe so, and I think his dad's somewhat a little more involved, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think he'll be leaving Sugar Hill.
No, I know Ben Whittaker did recently because he said he's spending too much time with Fury and he's traveling too much, and he said it just doesn't work for him to be following Sugar Hill Stewart around, the Fury camp around. So Ben Whittaker has gone in separate ways with him amicably. I think just last week that was announced. But I say Ben Whittaker fought on the last show. We did the live watch along for it, and some people seem to be of the view that he'd been not necessarily exposed, but a tad minimised by the performance, you know. But
what is your thoughts right now? I know you probably only know what we know, Ben, but normally know a bit more than most of us. What's going on with Conor Benn?
So Conor, yeah, because you mentioned this on the watch long, but we didn't really get a chance to speak about it. So Conor, in order for him to fight as he did he fought in Florida, didn't he? Then he fought again in Vegas. He headlined against that Peter Dobson in Vegas a few months ago. Yeah, smallish kind of show, although he was the headline in Vegas. That happened ostensibly because the National Anti-Doping Panel lifted his suspension. But the British Books and Border Control and UKAD both appealed that decision, and it turns out they've won. So they appealed the decision to lift his suspension. He was able to get American licenses and box in America twice because he wasn't suspended by his own commission, his own former commission at that time, his own national commission. Now it might be a different situation. It's all bound by confidentiality, Eddie Hearn was saying yesterday. So you've got this situation where, having won the appeal, obviously the British Boxing Border Control and UKAD are going to make their next move and make an announcement of some sort soon in terms of what their decision will be, because his suspension has been, I don't know if it's been reinstated, but they won their appeal against the decision to lift it. Let's put it that way. So that means the ban is reinstated.
And he served 2 years out of the ring already, right?
Not quite, did he? Because he ended up boxing a couple of times. But it was October 2022 he was supposed to fight Eubank.
Right.
From a test in July, failed test in July, weren't they? Were they July and September or July and August, whatever they were?
It's funny because the little fight that he just had now in some way hurts him. Had he not had it, he had an argument. I've been 2 years out. Do you get me? I've served my time, but now they can say you've not served your time, you just fought, So
yeah,
whatever,
he fought twice. Yeah, exactly that.
Whatever punishment they give him, he's probably going to have to start again because he's just fought.
It's not as simple as Eddie thought it was going to be, I suspect. Yeah, because in order to take advantage of the situation and make the most of his investment, Eddie Hearn, he's stuck by the kid. He's got to be able to put him into a big fight. And they were talking about Manny Pacquiao and et cetera, or still making the Eubank fight. But he can't fight in Britain. That much is pretty close. He can't fight in Britain right now, certainly not. I don't know whether there's going to be another hearing with him, another sit down with the Border Control or what. So regardless of whether he can get licensed in America still or not, depending on what decision UKAD and the board issue, what can he do? Because the trouble with fighting in Saudi Arabia against, let's say, Manny Pacquiao, the Border Control have overseen all those Saudi Arabian shows, haven't they? They've been the commission on the ground. So
let me ask you, Ben, how do you see him? Let's say he gets to fight Pacquiao. How do you see that fight?
I don't know, because Pacquiao's not been in the ring for a couple of years and he's already old. I think Ben, it might be like Amir Khan versus Marco Antonio Barrera kind of thing, maybe. And so perhaps Ben can roll over him at this point.
I think Pacquiao is a special. I think he'll be too much.
I wouldn't be surprised if Pacquiao still beat him.
No, he's a bit of a freak. I've spent a lot of time around Manny because I'm in LA. I go down the wild card. He's a freak, and he's a freak. He almost gets better. He's just a real different kind of animal. If they think they're going to get Pacquiao on the slide, they're not. He's going to be a lot of problems for him. And I think just maybe too much all around.
When was the last time Manny was in a ring?
Well, it's like when he fought, who was the unbeaten guy, and he fought Manny. They all thought Manny was going to beat him, and he beat him. Thurman.
Yeah.
It's like one of the, he just, did a job on Thurman. I think he'll do I think it's the wrong fight for young Ben, who I love. I'm a big fan. I think it's the wrong fight. He's putting him in with someone who has a lot of everything.
Manny has not boxed for nearly 3 years when he lost to Yordenis Ugas. All right.
Yeah. I think that he's.
Before that, it was 2 years earlier than that when he boxed Keith Thurman, like you just alluded to.
I think it's the wrong fight for someone who's still working out. I think Ben's still working out not his style. We know his style, but he's a pretty young fighter, Ben, as far as experience. And I just think Manny's got so much up his sleeve. It's a bit too much. There's a lot easier fights for Ben with more current names that will be easier fights than Manny. I think Manny's going to be a lot of problems for him. That's me personally.
But as I say, right now it's difficult to see. I mean, Eddie Hearn, when he made a statement, I think it was yesterday, did an interview yesterday with somebody.
Raymond Hales is just asking that question, Ben, but
yeah.
I think you probably answered it, right?
Yeah. He said, it's difficult to see where we go at the minute. He said, has it harmed his next fight? He said, well, we don't know because nothing's been set. He said, we don't know what his next fight is. But Eddie did throw his hand up yesterday kind of and say it is frustrating, it is annoying, and I can't really tell you where we're going to go because I don't know. We need the board and the UCAD to make their move. Now they've won the appeal. They need to say what jurisdiction they're going to take, right?
We need some kind of order, some kind of structure. What's going to happen?
Exactly, and then at least he knows where he stands then, and he can press on accordingly. Because, like you say, he's served elements of a kind of a ban anyway, and he's certainly experienced backlash, and he hasn't got away with it scot-free, has he? Regardless of what happened.
No, he's had a long layoff, like 18 months and almost 2 years. He definitely did serve time because of it. Went through a lot of mental anguish. As we all know, it was all documented. And he's been punished to a degree. If he's guilty, and they let him fight. If he was guilty, he got off pretty lightly. But if he wasn't, then it's been a horrible situation for him. But I've always felt that he didn't do it on purpose. I know it's a very controversial and there's a lot of elements involved, but for me, it doesn't seem that kind of guy. And I don't think, you've got to look at the amounts as well. Like when they find these trace amounts, when you look at them amounts, it doesn't, even if it's true, doesn't really help you, that amount. But what it does do, what people don't realize, they say, well, it's so small, it wouldn't affect you. What it does do, Ben, what people don't realize is that's at the time that they're tested. But if they were using it earlier, it would have given higher performance, quicker recovery, and got them in better shape for the fight.
It's just the arse end of what they were taking. Traces is no mitigation at all. Absolutely not.
Yeah. What's the jughead saying, Ben? I agree with Gary.
He agrees with you about Pacquiao. Yeah. He says Pacquiao's managed to avoid the war.
Yeah, I think Jughead's right. He's such an athlete, such a freak of nature, and he lives a good life. And I see him. You see him in the gym now. He looks incredible. I mean, he looks fucking amazing, better than ever. And so, he's not one who's he's not. If they think they're going to get someone an easy job, he's the wrong guy to pick. And I just think he's got too much experience. Like it's too much experience for a Conor.
I think he's ripe enough for the taking if Ben's going anywhere. I mean, I'm not saying Manny can't win, but if he honestly can't beat him when he's been out the ring cracking on for,
I think it's a bad fight because if you can't beat Pacquiao, it's very bad. But trust me, 90% of the guys out there can't beat Pacquiao. But there's more profile names higher in the public esteem who are much easier fights than Pacquiao. Promise you.
Possibly so, but I'd rather fight Pacquiao than Jerome Ennis, wouldn't you? Ennis will carve him up. Ennis will carve him up. Ennis will carve Pacquiao up too.
I think Pacquiao will.
But
the problem with Pacquiao, I think Pacquiao
will want Pacquiao out of there.
I think Pacquiao. The problem with Pacquiao, I think, based on styles, and I think Pacquiao will school him, which will be like a mismatch, like a complete not do a number on him and make him look very bad.
It feels like you've changed your opinion of Ben and you've called on.
No, I haven't. I just think Pacquiao's a special guy, and I just think that
he is. But we've seen special guys before, and Muhammad Ali was a special guy. So was Sugar Ray Leonard. We saw them in embarrassing defeats.
Yeah, but I think this is. I don't think Pacquiao's. I think Pacquiao's a different kettle of fish.
We'll see. Well, like I say, it'll be interesting to see.
And again, Styles again. I think he's the wrong style for Ben. I think he'll be too smart, too slick. He'll stand. He'll run circles around him, and he'll hurt him. I think he's be too much at this stage, and not that Ben couldn't beat him down the line, but I don't think. I think he's just one of them fighters that wrong guy for Ben. I think there's other fighters that Ben could knock out and get a lot more credit for doing it. I think Pacquiao is a big banana skin. It's just me, but we'll see if it happens.
Raymond says, do you think Conor Benn has enough to win a world title? No domestic titles is a big red flag for me. What I would say, I think these days I don't really think being a world champion means very little to me nowadays as a yardstick. When people say he's going all the way or can he go all the way, it doesn't mean we've lost the plot. So of course he could win a world title.
Let's Ben, give me the champions at the weight now.
What, welterweight?
Let's go through them. Can Ben beat him now? Who's the world champion now, welterweight?
Well, you've got Jerron Ennis and Terence Crawford as it stands.
Well, he can't beat either one of them, that's for sure, right?
No, he can't. But you know, things become available, don't they?
Crawford moves up. Then who's
Crawford is moving up. Crawford is moving up.
Then, so who would be next in line?
You've got guys like Virgil Ortiz Jr. Assuming it, although I don't know if he can make welterweight anymore. Ennis, there's another guy in the mix whose name I forget.
I would put Ben up there with all them guys. Not with the Crawford and not with an Ennis, but anyone else. I think he's a good chance.
I don't think he'd be Virgil Ortiz Jr. either. Assuming he can make welterweight still. I know he was having trouble making welterweight. Virgil Ortiz, wasn't he? He was burning muscle tissue and making himself ill. So maybe he's at 154 now.
I think there's a good argument that Ben would be would have a chance with anyone right now except the elite couple. So yeah, like Ben, there's a lot of belts and what's a world title? Can he get his hands on a world title? Sure.
I think anyone can nearly who's well managed, as long as they've got to have an entry level of ability, of course. But to me, it's just not special anymore. It is not special. That is what you do. If you flooded the world with diamonds, then diamonds wouldn't be worth anything, would they?
No. But the one thing I like about Conor Benn is he's a genuine, all action, pure. You know what you're getting. He's going to be 100% going out to win a world title and exciting. And he's wears his heart on his sleeve. So I think he's a great crowd pleaser. I like watching him. I like him against anybody. He's always going to put up a great show. If he gets knocked out, it won't be because he'll be trying to kill you when he gets knocked out. So he's a great entertainer. So I got to give him that. Conor Benn for me boxing needs more Conor Benns. Young kid, doesn't care, fight anyone, genuinely go in there and fucking put a real fight on. So he's always going to be exciting. So I think that's what I love about Conor Benn. He's genuinely a really entertaining, special young kid and could surprise anyone. So you never know. He's got that it factor, and that's what makes him a draw. That's what makes him interesting.
I think the fans are turned on him in this country for sure. I think they don't. I think they're not even fussed anymore. I put it out there to tease a bit of interest sometimes, and they don't even get a bite these days.
Well, it's sad because this drug thing. It's like everything. It's like everything, Ben. It's like you get a slur on your name and people turn on you so fast. And then what's sad is often people are innocent. Sometimes they're not. So the problem is you just don't know. But if he is innocent, it's so sad because it takes a lot of work to get where he got, and to get people turn on you. Let's just say he's innocent. Let's just give him the presume of doubt. It's very, very sad that people can turn like that, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Listen, if he's innocent, I feel for him, absolutely. But my gut feeling is I'm more towards the fact that he's not. And when we talk about the benefit of doubt, he has failed 2 tests. He's the one who is trying to create doubt around that. But it's not like when people used to say stuff like in this build-up to this situation, like, innocent until proven guilty. But they're talking about an English law process where you haven't actually been found guilty yet. Ben has already been found guilty twice. What he's doing is he is saying
he's had an adverse drug test. But
yeah,
has he been found guilty? No, he's been.
No, he has.
Well, no, he's had he's been found positive for a substance, but we don't know, do we? How it got, we don't know. I don't know. I don't possess
John
the
Graham says he's as innocent as my pa, who was on Crime Watch Robin Dixon's back in 1995 with his mug captured perfectly on camera. That's something to be proud of. There's a bit of, bit of family legacy there.
My mate got caught cheating, his wife put a detective on him.
Yeah.
And they had photographs. And there's a photo of him. He has a pizzeria in LA, and the young girl he was cheating with him. He was cheating with this young girl, and the wife was away, and she knew.
Cool. Just an interesting story. And Gary's
kissing him in the pizzeria. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go on. Go again. So
pizzeria. Yes. So my mate, his wife had thoughts that he was cheating, so she went away. She was an actress, and he owns a pizzeria in LA, so she put a private detective. And the young girl that he was having an affair with, she's in the pizzeria with him. They've got pictures behind the counter kissing, and the wife shows him the picture, and he said, "That's not me." And then she says, "Okay." Then there's another picture. He's got a Ferrari. Him and the young girl's in the Ferrari. And he shows him the picture. He said, "That's not me." And so then they had another picture. They'd actually got in. They were in the house, in bed, and the guy took a picture through the window of him and the young girl in bed. And on the side cabinet was a picture of him and his wife. So it's definitely. And he went. He said that started to look like me.
Yeah, it started to look like me. Yeah.
That's a true story. And the wife told me, she was laughing. She said, he's such a bastard. She said, I said, what did he said, well, that started to look like me. But he denied it all the way to that. So yeah, it's say nothing, Ben, not me.
On that note, well, certainly, regardless of Gary's friend, the philanderer he clearly was, we will never be unfaithful to you, our small but loyal audience, as things stand. So we'll be back. I think we'll be back Sunday night. Hopefully we'll have the Silk with us, because he's always a guest, isn't he? Let's face it. Inject some comedy into the show. And we'll be looking at...
quick question. Before you do your closing, Ben, what do we have to look forward to in the next few weeks for fights? Do you have...
Okay, so you've got April 13th, because tomorrow night I say there's a Matchroom show. Ellie Scottney's fighting, Galalia Fire's fighting, and Richard Hitchens is headlining against Gustav Lemos. Then you've got, I believe there's a Japanese prize fighter. Is that April 20th? That's happening in Tokyo. You've got Haney versus Garcia, April 20th in Brooklyn. April 13th, you've got the Ellie Scottney is fighting, headlining a show, I believe, in London. There will be other names on that bill. What else? So that takes us to what? You've got April 20th is Garcia.
That's the most exciting fight for me. That's going to be,
it is. And we seem to be over that kind of concern of, whether Garcia's lost the plot or not. The heat seems to be off him at the minute, and he's training. He's posting training videos of inspiring, and we seem to be on for that. Picture of Devin Haney looking in ridiculous shape today, as you might expect. What else? So what will be the 27th? I'm trying to think what April 27th is. I'm drawing a blank. But once you get to April 27th, Gary, it's only 2 weeks to go to Fury Usyk. And I still want to go, you've got 5 versus 5, which is going to be June the 1st, Matchroom versus Queensbury show. You headlined by Dimitri Bivol and Artur Beterbiev, which is probably the most mouth-watering trade super fight in the offing for a few years.
Did they give names or just weights?
They did give weights. I'd have to listen. There's going to be a press conference on Monday, April 15th, which I'm planning to attend. I don't know if you seem to skip to London sometimes, Gary. If you happen to make it to London for that particular week of April 15th, then maybe you come along as well. You fancy it?
Yeah, I'm trying.
But can we keep this? I'm actually gonna screen grab this bit. I'm gonna take an advert out, a billboard over Trafalgar Square with this thing in. Jughead, who's absolutely right. His lips or fingers should be bronzed for typing this. He says, I like Silk, but he interrupts too much. There it is. It is official. The fans have spoken. Michael Silk Elijah Jr. interrupts Ben Doughty and Gary Stretch too much. Mic drop.
On that note, Ben, do you think?
Cheers, guys. We'll be back with the great interrupter, hopefully, because we still love him, regardless of the interruptions on Sunday night. In the meantime, don't do anything that Gary Stretch wouldn't do. We'll see you next time.
God bless.
That was slow the way I did that. Hang on, bang. You got to put your